Welcome to Newrealities. My name is Alan Steinfeld. And on this program, I'd like to explore the evolving spiritual, emotional, physical potential of our race as we move into a greater peace within ourselves and hopefully the world. Tonight's guest is someone who's very practiced and studied in the art of sexuality, Taoist, sexual cultivation, and she'll be talking about orgasm, Omni orgasm, and how we can expand our human potential. Tonight's guest is Saida.
Thank you, Alan. Nice to be here.
It's always nice to see you. What I like about you is that you're so light and open and full of joy about sexuality, where so many people keep it like a dark secret. How did you get that way?
I think I was born this way, but I was very lucky because I wasn't raised in a social setting where sexual energy was made wrong. I had two very loving, passionate parents who were very healthy around sexual energy. They just had great boundaries and explained things very easily. And then I didn't have a religious influence, so there was no stigma attached to how I thought about lovemaking and bodies.
Isn't it weird when you come across people that, which is most of the world, that do have a stigma about that?
It's weird and it isn't, because most of my friends were like that, and so I just thought I was the unusual one.
So you were just really always open and free, and did you get a lot of negative, energy put towards you?
Yep.
You did, and how did you deal with that?
Well, the first time I taught sexual practice, I was 5 years old, and I was teaching.
What did you teach 5-year-olds?
I was teaching my friends about their clitoris, or the little bliss button.
Is that what you call it? Press the little bliss button.
Exactly. And we were found, because this was in the basement of a friend's house, and we were found, and I was obviously the one telling the other girls about it, so I wasn't allowed to play with my friends anymore. And
but it was just a natural thing. You're like, guess what, girls?
This feels good, yeah. But somehow that didn't scar me, and I've experienced a whole range of experiences, including a rape, and that also didn't scar me.
Because most women would be very turned. So how did you deal with that so it wasn't traumatic?
I think in the moment I just was really present when I was having the experience. I didn't leave my body, and afterwards I didn't blame any other man for that experience. So I just worked with it within myself. Yeah.
Well, some people say rape isn't actually a sexual experience at all.
No, it's more a violent experience,
Yeah, so it's a violence. And so many people kind of channel their violence into their sexuality, right? And that's also a place where it's got kind of a bad press because of that. So you're really here to lift the energy, to make our potential of sexuality a joyful experience.
A very joyful experience, and more of an everyday experience, rather than it's something hidden or strange.
Or even that you do like at night with your partner. It's like, oh, okay, now let's have sex.
Exactly, in a compartmentalized way. But for me, sexual energy, you can access it every moment of the day. It's your creative life force. It's what, if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be here. You'd be dead. So if you can tune into it and access it, you have infinite amount of creative energy. So you can create whatever you want in your life.
I mean, men and women, I don't know about women, but for men, I think, it goes through these cycles where, we can be very aroused and then not so aroused throughout the course of the day. I mean, of course, a lot of men just focus on that until, they have a release. So there's something very disconnected about that kind of sexuality.
Right.
And so how can we all be more connected to it? What would you suggest?
Well, one of the fundamental Taoist practices is the inner smile. And the inner smile allows you to have inner relationship to all your organs, your body. And as you learn to have this inner awareness, this inner smiling energy, and you activate the sexual energy, then it just kind of spreads throughout the body and gets taken away from just being genitally located. And you bring that pleasurable feeling into your whole body. The inner smile also allows you to build a healthy relationship with your emotions.
In what way?
Well, for me, the sexual energy it amplifies whatever's there. So if you have a lot of hidden anger in your body and you start to activate yourself sexually, you're going to act out with more anger because it amplifies.
You're going to act out sexually more? Maybe
not even sexually, but in your life. The sexual energy, if you have sex and you move that energy in the body, it will amplify what's there. So you can start experiencing anger at you or more you directed at someone.
Right.
So in learning how to, I call it sexual management, energy management, learning to work with it and understand it, then you become more conscious of how you are in the world and what you're creating around yourself. So
I mean, the inner smile is something Matak Chia developed, where you take that feeling of smiling and you just bring it into your organs. I mean, you connect it with your lungs and your heart, just the feeling of smiling.
Yes.
So when you connect it then to the sexual organs, what actually happens? I mean, do you start to raise that energy up?
Okay, well, there's several things. The more you smile, the more the heart opens and softens. And the heart is an essential part of higher sexual practice because the heart will create compassion. I like to call it compassion, bringing the sexual energy up to the heart and becoming more aware and more conscious that way. So smiling down to the genitals, we often don't even think of smiling to our genitals. Right. There's often anger, repression, resentment, frustration, fear, all these different things associated with our sexual organs. And so when we learn to smile down and send the loving energy of our heart to our sexual organs, it creates a whole new relationship to what our sexual energy is.
Right, it's like, hello, welcome.
Exactly.
Be a part of like the rest of the body.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, I guess people sort of segregate their sexual organs as like a special part of themselves, or
yeah, they separate it, they isolate it, and they're disconnected from it. A lot of people live from the neck up.
That's true, especially in the city. Their body is just something to carry their head around on.
Yes.
You know? So when and I think sexuality is so focused upon in the city because it's a way for people to get back in touch with nature and their body, but it's very unbalanced, that connection. So you bring the sexuality to every part of your body.
Yes. So through the Taoist practices of the orbit and the inner smile and these different ways of opening the body, the sexual organs aren't the only thing that's going to contain the energy anymore. So the whole body becomes a container for this life force. And every cell then becomes a part of it, which for me defines more what Omni orgasm is.
Yeah, what's Omni orgasm?
Well, probably some people have heard of multi-orgasm. And multi-orgasm just means many. Right. And usually in a sexual setting means one after another. Okay. Omni orgasm basically just means all orgasmic or all orgasm.
Like all the time. You're always orgasmic.
All meaning all the time, but also meaning more, it's not related to just my genitals. It's not related just to male-female interaction or human interaction. So I start to receive bliss and pleasure through just the act of being alive.
And do you?
Yes, I absolutely do.
And you've developed that how? Through this inner smile and the microcosmic orbit work of Matak Chia?
Yes, and actually if you just learn how to smile and enjoy the aroused sensations that your body has, tuning into them. A lot of ladies say they never have orgasms, but I believe that they do. They're just not aware because they're the more subtle orgasms. They're not traditionally defined.
Yeah, orgasm has a whole span of possibilities, right?
Exactly.
I mean, everyone thinks it's just this wild explosion of burst.
The Big Bang Theory, yeah.
But it's everything in between that, like from feeling subtle bliss to like,
fully expanded, hour-longs,
But the goal of sex actually isn't orgasm. I mean,
no.
in the tantric and the Taoist traditions, that's not the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice side benefit. But
It's a process-oriented experience rather than a goal-oriented experience.
and that's the kind of sexuality you're teaching and developing.
That's correct, yes.
We're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
We're being in the moment together.
Yes.
I think that's very important
Yeah.
because
Being with ourselves, being with other individuals, being with nature. If you watch nature very carefully, especially now it's springtime, and you see the vibration of life in the trees and the squirrels and the pigeons, everything's getting sexy, everything's preparing for this procreative time. So when you attune yourself to nature, you as well can receive this energy. So for me, looking at a sunset or the trees, the leaves swaying in the trees, I can have spontaneous, what I call blissgasms, little...
it's a physiologic, it would be like an orgasm?
It's like an orgasm. It's not in my genitals. Although I can experience genital orgasm through that as well, but it's more through, it just feels my whole body is expanded.
If you see something beautiful, your whole body has,
Yeah.
that's an amazing capability. I would think it's possible for everyone to
We're
have
wired
that.
to do that, yeah.
We are wired to
Yeah.
do that, but somehow we've so disconnected from that potential. So if we see something beautiful, we say, "Oh, isn't that nice?" Right? But we don't really feel it. It's a visual stimulation. But then, how do we bring that into our physiology?
Right. Well, there's a couple things there. One, I think, is people are afraid to really feel.
Yeah.
The emotional world is one of the places where we're not really mature as adult species. We're mature physically, mentally, even spiritually. We're encouraged to mature, but not necessarily emotionally.
Well, what does that mean, emotional maturity?
It's an understanding and being at home with yourself that yes, I do experience anger, and yes, I do experience kindness, and working with, instead of becoming the emotion, feeling it like it's an energy passing through you or a signpost on your road on the way to where you're going.
So you're the observer of now I'm feeling anger. So instead of activating it or engaging it, you just observe it.
Well, it's both. You're in it and you're observing it. So you're not experiencing it. You allow yourself to be totally in it, but at the same time you understand that that's not who you are.
Right, and
Yeah.
I would say the same thing with the sexual energy as well.
Yes.
So then, even though you're a very sexual being, you don't want to have sex all the time, do you?
No. Yeah. It's very interesting. When you do this practice, you start to expand your potential of what it means to be sexual. And you no longer become dependent on another person or a specific type of event, meaning intercourse or stimulation. And you start to realize you can access orgasmic energy or bliss energy through just simply breathing and smiling. And that's what I mean by a greater potential or expanding who we are as beings.
No, I get that from you because I've talked to many different teachers, and there's something very integrated about you and your approach, and innocent, you know? That's what I like about you. It's very sweet and humble, and, you know, you're not putting yourself up on a pedestal. You're just someone who's talking about their experience within your own body and capacity.
Absolutely.
And you're here to teach. I mean, so do you want to talk about some of the things you do teach in your workshop?
I have a passion for seeing as many people as vibrantly alive and passionate as they can be, because I think the world would be a great place if everyone was like that. Yeah. And what I like to teach is the understanding of what it is to be omni-orgasmic versus what some people think that they're not even orgasmic. Right. And how can you get there, and how does this work? So most of it is really just the art of learning self-love, self-acceptance, and becoming very present with what's there right now.
Whatever's there.
Whatever is there. For example, I know that a lot of times both sexes will experience anger towards the other sex for being aroused. So a man will often
not being aroused.
For not being aroused. But But if a man sees a woman dressed a certain way and he gets aroused, he can get angry and say, well, why is she wearing a miniskirt? And if a woman sees a man with an erection through his pants, she can get upset. And why is he getting aroused? And so there can be this kind of exchange or misunderstanding. And the way I see it is, these are gifts that we give each other, the opposite sex gives to each other.
To arouse each other is a gift. So
it's a gift in that instead of me doing something about it, I can accept, I understand I'm being aroused, and I go, thank you so much. I just got all this great energy. And I send it through my whole body, have a great experience. I don't need to talk to the person. I don't need to make them wrong or even understand what they're doing. I just receive it and give thanks for that. So that's part of the training, is learning more and more compassion. Sexual practice really develops yourself as a spiritual being because it develops the compassion heart.
And there are specific sexual practices, like on the last show you talked about these jade eggs, which are used internally in a woman, and there are certain practices that men use to build up the muscles as well. And then when they come together, the man and woman, they can have deeper physical pleasure because of these physical exercises.
Yes. So in the East, the solo practice is often very much emphasized. So to really self-cultivate first. But I think the gift that we have here in the West is our relationships are very different. We're very much fluid in our relationships. So I think that's the gift the West can give these ancient practices, is being more aware of how to share this energy with other people.
Right.
And so that's a very important component, is understanding how energy exchanges between a man and a woman and between individuals. Yeah.
And so in the Taoist practice of Matek Chia, the idea is to bring the sexual energy up the spine and expand the brain, to stimulate the pineal and pituitary system.
Yes, and the other side of that is you also bring it down the front. And when you bring it down the front, it opens your throat, which allows you to speak your truth. It opens the heart, creating more compassion. It opens the solar plexus, which allows you to just be in the world, very comfortably be in the world. It keeps opening the front, open the front. And the front is known as the yin, or the feminine channel. And most of us are very comfortable in our masculine expression of doing and going and being in linear thought. But our feminine, the softness, the more receptive side, we don't often cultivate. So this practice very much balances your own internal yin and yang, or male and female energies. Yeah.
And on the last show, you talked about the sophisticated development of female sexuality with the different fluids, and there's the clitoral stimulation produces one sort of fluid, and the G-spot stimulation produces a more viscous type of fluid, and then the cervix, when that is stimulated, I guess through deep prolonged penetration, right? That's when the cervix produces a sort of a kind of a very heavy type of fluid, right? And that must have components in the male physiology as well.
Yeah, the pre-cum in a man, so there's just a clear prostate fluid, is I believe to be another elixir, and very important to ingest, or at least put on the body as a stimulant. And some men experience such huge amounts of it, they're quite uncomfortable. They don't understand why there's so much.
Before ejaculated fluid.
Just when they're aroused and excited, there could be a lot of clear liquid releasing, and they're often afraid of losing energy or whatever in their expression of that. So, in my understanding, if it's coming out, just enjoy it, ingest it. Rub it on yourself, whatever you like. So sexual fluids to me are not that different than my tears or my saliva. They're not wrong, they're not bad, they're very sacred. And often I've found if you are sensitive energetically to these fluids, you can actually get high from them. They're very charged with a lot of energy. So the more healthy you can be, your lifestyle, as well, the energy will get more and more powerful within these fluids.
Well, in the Taoist practices, they say the man should retain his ejaculation, pull it up the spine. Do you think that's always the case? I mean, I feel depleted if I ejaculate.
Right.
Usually.
Again, it's sexual energy management. So some Taoists are very strict; they never ejaculate. And other Taoists feel like a good spring cleaning is okay, and so they'll do it a few times a year, mostly in the spring. I believe in exchange. So if you have a partnership that's going to a higher level, and the woman is often gifting her fluids to the male, then I believe that the male can occasionally gift her.
But women aren't depleted in the same way that men are, right? I mean,
they're not, but I
so.
think it's okay once in a while in that kind of a way. Especially if you do practices, really what you're doing is drawing the chi from the sperm into your body. So if you're releasing the sperm and you've already drawn all the energy out of it, it's not as damaging as not doing any practice and ejaculating.
Right. Is there a way then to rebuild the chi in men if they happen to ejaculate? Which way is that?
Oh, well, there's many qigongs. It's hard to get into at this time.
Qigong and practices.
And diet and
food. And there are aphrodisiacs that will do that as well.
Yes.
I mean, I find like seafood is an aphrodisiac. No, it's true. Oysters and shrimp. And
olives.
Because they produce a deeper heat in the lower dantian and they help build the kidneys. So. Now, for women, though, having orgasms isn't depleting. It's very energizing. This is what you've talked about. Can you...
Some ladies it is depleting, so it depends as well on the individual. Women usually lose their energy through menstruation. So they learn through practices how to tap into the ovarian chi and pull that energy into their body and rejuvenate them. The older ladies that I know that do this practice look very young. They haven't gone through the traditional sense of menopause. They're still juicy. They're still
Could they
alive.
then start to then menstruate if they wanted to?
Master Chia has known women who've done practice that have brought their menstruation back even up to 65 years of age.
And would they be able to conceive a child
Yes.
with that? They would.
Yeah.
Because they've held on to the chi.
Well, even if you stop menstruating, it doesn't mean that the eggs are gone. Yeah, it's just the hormones have changed.
Well, people say that women really deplete their energy through childbirth. That you lose a lot of chi that way. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, all the best energies go to the child. So the more children you're pregnant with, the more you're draining your own body, because it all goes, the fetus gets the creme of the creme of everything. So.
Well, that's why when I talked to Matak Chia, he told me he was building an immortal child out of his own essence. Is that something you're practicing as well?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me? Tell
Yeah,
me how to do
it had to do with the last session we talked about the Kan and Li practices.
Right.
And these are the self-intercourse practices, they're inner alchemy practices. And within that, you do create this immortal child or immortal fetus. And it comes from the union, the male and female energies in your body make love, and from that union, there's an energetic child or fetus that's formed, and then you develop and grow it through your loving attention, through your meditation.
Do you feel this fetus now? I mean, have you developed that yet?
If you can, I can. The thing that happens though when you're an early practitioner, if you don't continue the practice, it just dissolves, and then you have to go and recreate this experience. As you get more advanced, it stays. So it's not a practice that I'm developing at this time for myself with a lot of enthusiasm, more based on I have other intentions for myself right now.
Right, you want to go out and teach and experience more of
You need a lot of quiet space and undisturbed practice time for that.
And then when you give birth to the immortal child, it's sort of a spring of enlightenment. And
it gives birth eventually to your spirit body, and the Taoists believe that you can become immortal through, at the time of death, taking your conscious self, putting in the spirit body, and then you consciously keep existing.
Right, and I think that's possible. I know that's possible.
Yeah, so.
But for you right now, you're here to really teach about sexuality and development and how to bring that bliss into
Yes.
So just tell us, what is our potential? What do you see as our human potential?
I really see us as having much more capacity to love unconditionally. And that doesn't mean just the traditional spiritual sense of it, but really feeling the love frequency, love energy, love chi, emanating not just from ourselves, but from life. I see us understanding, fully integrating sexual energy into absolutely every activity.
Wouldn't that be great if we were actually taught that in school, as opposed to like just the stupid sex education that they give people there?
I'm actually planning to do that.
Oh, really?
I know that Planned Parenthood has programs already, and I do teach. The youngest student I have is an 11-year-old boy, and he's been meditating since he was 3. He's a very advanced soul already, and that was his final step that his mother felt that he needed. So.
And you're in New York, and you're giving workshops and lectures and private sessions, actually. So if people want to get in touch with Saida, they can contact
Sexy Spirits at www.sexyspirits.com.
So it's www.sexyspirits.com.
That's correct.
That's to reach Saida. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Alan. It was nice talking to you. And we'll talk more and talk about... I'd like to talk about real deep development of sexual practice and how to really activate that.
That sounds fantastic.
So,
thank
you for watching. Thank you. This is Alan Steinfeld, and if you want to reach me, I'm at 212-473-6388. Thank you. Yeah, I think deep sexual, somehow getting into another depth there.
Yeah, absolutely. We could talk more about practices. And
I mean, where would you like to go? Because that was a nice general introduction. I thought that was better, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
No,
so.
What would be?
Well, a lot of times I find that the general public, that's more who I'm interested in touching with this work, because there are a lot of teachers that are gifted in teaching those who are already aware. So I'm more interested in reaching the people who are not aware and giving them...
Like the person that would just go and have sex like for 10 minutes and like...
I have construction workers in my classes. I've got doctors and nurses. I've got lawyers. I've got
But how do you
TV
reach
directors.
them initially? Because most people...
Through word of mouth.
Most people think it's just natural. You know, you go home, you have sex for a half hour, and then or 20 or 10 minutes, and that's it for the man's side. Of course, the women are pretty unsatisfied with that.
That happened to me actually one time in a party. I was introduced as a sex instructor, and I was kind of pissed about being introduced as a sex instructor. So one of the men, very arrogantly said, "Oh yeah, well, what can you teach me?" Oh, brother, here we go. So he was very arrogant to me, and I said, well, can you have an orgasm? He's like, well, yeah, I have lots of them. I'm like, good, so you passed kindergarten. And it was more a statement, it was kind of a cruel way of saying it, but it was more a statement of understanding that for him to understand that he was only in kindergarten, that there's whole schools of thought beyond what he knew. And the friend who had introduced me, I thought that was the strangest comment, but a few months later started realizing that I had said something that was actually very, very true, and had contacted me to further investigate this kindergarten sex theory.
So you made a dent in that. What about those women? You know, there's a huge sex industry in the city, you know, where women give tantric massages. I mean, there's friends of mine that do that, and they don't think there's anything... Well, there isn't anything wrong with it, but it seemed... And some of the women do use it as a way to bring men in more awareness of their energy, but there's still a huge disconnect in that.
Right. I think the Taoists always... They don't judge anyone. They're pretty much on the middle path.
Right.
So, to each their own. People sometimes just need what you were saying. But I oftentimes, when I have those kind of practitioners come to me, highly encourage them to become more educated and to start educating their clients.
What would you tell these women? Because these women, I think, are basically doing it for money. So they're doing these tantric and getting these men off, but there's not a real deep connection to the man, and the man, you know, is then releasing their energy.
It's the same thing I tell everyone, is really go in and cultivate yourself. Because when you get to that place of understanding how incredibly sacred you are, in that your sexual energy is so precious and your heart energy is so tender. When you reach that state of understanding, it automatically goes outward. It just does.
So would you recommend women not do that? Or, I mean...
No, I mean, I have friends who do that. But when I work with them, I say, are you using your egg? They're like, no. I'm like, use your egg when you work.
So they use their jade egg when
inside themselves to generate more energy.
But the problem comes because these women are doing it for money. I mean, mostly, I would say, not for the energy exchange.
Well, it's interesting because one of the practitioners I know, she used to sell real estate. And she said she felt more like a prostitute then than she does now doing sex work. And because her heart and her spirit and her mind is more aligned and in tuned with the spirit and heart of the person, she doesn't feel like she's selling herself. She's just providing a service that she feels is necessary, whereas in real estate, she really felt like she was selling herself.
I know what you mean, but I was just wondering, is there a way, like I guess in this woman's case, where it can be integrated more, so where you're not selling yourself, and you're not providing a service, but you're having an intimate contact with another person?
Yes. Well, in terms of lower chakra energy, money and sex often are in the same area. So survival, sexual energy, all this comes from the lower part of the body.
Well, survival and sexual energy are very related. I mean,
Exactly.
sexual energy is for the survival of the species, originally, you know, or on a physical, mundane level, that's what it's for. So I could see why they're related.
Yeah, so often what I'll say to women like that is perhaps to look at not necessarily taking every single client, being more selective, knowing that maybe if they do one massage less a day, yes, they've made a little less money, but perhaps they didn't take that one client they didn't feel comfortable with. And just to really work with people that they are comfortable with, and not to be afraid of saying no or educating them or having books around that they can recommend. And if the man's completely closed to that, then making a choice. Do you really want to work with him or not? And that usually brings a little bit of awareness in their mind that they might have some options there. Yeah,
I mean,
to become a teacher.
Not to treat each other like objects, which is what happens in all those clubs. When I went into a strip club once, I was shocked because, you know, the men were treating the women like objects, but the women were treating the men like objects.
Yes.
Which was,
it's a reciprocated thing, and I call that base level understanding of life. And the more you evolve yourself, the more that changes. It just naturally changes. If a person becomes really aware, they won't hurt the earth because they'll become aware that hurting the earth hurts themselves. They pollute the very air they're breathing and the water they're drinking. But if you don't have awareness of your own body, you're not going to really have awareness of the earth or of other people.
Because this is the earth.
Yeah, so it starts within yourself. If you don't really love yourself, how can you extend that to someone? If you don't really think your sexual genitals are sacred, how are you going to value someone else's? Right. So that's where that starts, yeah.
That's good. So what do you want to do with yourself? I mean, what's your goal, ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is to really activate and fully access my full potential as a human being, and I really don't know what that looks like for myself. So I would have to say really living in the moment and experiencing joy with every moment and just being fully present with whatever's in front of me, good, bad, whatever the judgment may be. That's really my daily practice. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for watching.